This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about a really weird tweet thread from Vitalik Buterin, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, in which he mirrors many of the attacks on Ethereum that we've been talking about for many months now on this channel. According to critics of Ethereum, of whom I'm one, what are some of the problems with Ethereum? It lacks long-term stability, it's fragile, it's overly complicated, it's highly centralized, it can be turned off by one phone call to Infura and one phone call to Amazon Web Services. It's constantly hard forking at Vitalik's request because he has the bully pulpit, you might say, for Ethereum. It's also the home to many worthless Ponzi protocols. So today I want to welcome a new and distinguished critic to the ranks. I want to welcome Vitalik himself. And here's the tweet thread. I'll go over a few of the tweets in it, in which he talks about what he calls the open contradictions in his thoughts and values. The first one is really his desire to see Ethereum become much more stable than it is. And he acknowledges that Bitcoin does possess this long-term stability. This is, of course, the critique of Ethereum, is that it's broken before, it's been forked before, and it doesn't have that immutability and that stability that Bitcoin has. He also says that there's this contradiction between wanting Ethereum to get there and realizing how centralized his actions will need to be in order to get it there. What would require Ethereum, what Ethereum would need to become more like Bitcoin, at least according to Vitalik, is coordinated action, which implies a centralized coordinator, which is, of course, Vitalik himself. Unfortunately, you can't move from centralization to decentralization like this. So there's a basic envy here of Bitcoin and stability. Also, he talks about his contradiction between his desire to see Ethereum become a layer one that can survive truly extreme circumstances and his realization that many key apps on Ethereum already rely on a far more fragile security assumptions than anything he considers acceptable for Ethereum. He doesn't say which ones he's talking about. Obviously, the fact that Ethereum runs, all the nodes are done by Infura, etc., which goes over Amazon Web Services. And you have a lot of protocols. We talked about Chainlink, which is fairly fragile, given its multi-sig setup we talked about in a video a couple days ago. But this is really fascinating to see because you can see in real time here Vitalik admitting that Ethereum is not that stable and that it cannot survive extreme circumstances. In other words, perhaps a government attack, given the way it's currently set up and many of the key apps that it depends on. He also talks about his love of the Davos crowd and how he agrees with them about almost everything. He talks about his love for things like decentralization. There's this contradiction because he thinks he likes decentralization, democracy, but then his realization that in practice he agrees much more with the intellectual elites than the people. And this doesn't just mean smart people. That's not what he means by intellectual elites. He means the Davos crowd. And we can see here, this explains quite clearly why the Ethereum Foundation is so closely associated with the World Economic Forum. This is really his values. And if you like the current world and the way it's being run, you'll definitely like a world under Ethereum and the World Economic Forum. Now, people often ask me why I dislike Vitalik so much. It's not the cat purse. I'm actually fine with weird, smart people doing weird things. It is a little bit weird, but whatever. People can dress however they want. But here's the real problem. Vitalik has contributed more than probably anyone else to the war on Bitcoin. He's not the only person, but he's one of the more prominent attackers of Bitcoin. And you might even say that he's the Judas Iscariot of the Bitcoin story. To begin with, he coined the label Bitcoin maximalist, which has been a pretty powerful meme, and it's now used indiscriminately by unthinking altcoiners as a substitute for actual thinking. So in my videos, for example, I'll make a very strong logical argument. I'll provide all this evidence and of the way I'm thinking and how I think things are working out, and then I'll just get called a Bitcoin maximalist. And I don't care about this. I prefer to be called a Bitcoiner than a Bitcoiner maximalist. But the problem is you have a lot of dumb people who believe that they've actually said something when they say this. Many of these people can't even spell maximalist, and they think that this is how arguments should proceed, and this is how you do a debate. You basically do name calling. And unfortunately, Vitalik was the person who gave dumb people this phrase, this tool. What else has Vitalik done to attack Bitcoin? Well, the biggest thing perhaps is that he created the platform whose chief use has been the generation of thousands of new garbage coins. The whole ICO boom of 2016, 2017, NFTs, Web3, and I'm not the only one who dislikes Web3, but we'll get to that in a minute. This is the great metaphor from Safe about what Ethereum is, and I don't want to say it online, but Vitalik talks about the contradiction between his dislike of many modern financial blockchain applications. He references, I think he's referencing Bored Apes here, $3 million monkeys, and his grudging appreciation for the fact that it's this garbage that actually keeps the lights on and keeps fees being generated that help to subsidize projects he's more interested in, which would be more on the DAO governance side of things. And we can just see this proliferation. This is something I came across today. Weird Vitalik, weird and serious. What is it? Bored, weird Vitalik NFTs. And this is really one of the chief uses for Ethereum is NFTs like this. What else has Vitalik done to attack Bitcoin? Vitalik has been one of the longest running critics of Bitcoin's proof of work. He's muddied the waters repeatedly with his fake environmental concerns and pushing proof of stake. Again, the people who push proof of stake and who talk the most about the environment are the ones with the private jets. And you can tell by their behavior what they really think about clean air and clean water. These environmental concerns are just a mask for power and control, like much of the ESG space as well. And Vitalik has really done this repeatedly for years and years and years, talking about how bad Bitcoin is for the environment and how proof of stake, which Ethereum is going to move towards, at least someday, how proof of stake is the solution to this. As we've talked about in many videos, including yesterday's video, proof of stake is a disaster. It's not a secure system. It's a way for a few centralized actors to increase their control. So this is one of the other memes that's really, I think, done a lot to attack Bitcoin, especially in the popular press, the idea that Bitcoin wastes energy and is bad for the environment. Vitalik knows better than this. He understands why proof of work is necessary if you want to have a very neutral, decentralized currency. You just can't have this with proof of stake, as I talk about in many different videos. So if Vitalik is so frustrated as he appears to be, and this is almost like a software creator's midlife crisis, where he sees the monster he's been working on, a little bit like Dr. Frankenstein and his monster. He sees the monster and is a little bit disillusioned. So if so, why doesn't Vitalik just walk away like Satoshi did? Well, the real answer is because there are too many people depending on him, because he cannot. If he left Ethereum, the project would be in disarray and would probably fall to pieces. This is just further proof of how Ethereum is not decentralized. It's heavily reliant on people like Vitalik Buterin, Joe Lubin. And as I talk about in this video, which I'll link to below, Ethereum is banker coin. Here you can read about its all of its connections to JP Morgan as well as Joe Lubin and MetaMask and Infura and their relationship to JP Morgan. So I'd encourage you to check out that video. Here's one hypothesis. Vitalik's little April Fool's joke may have backfired on his brain. His defense of Bitcoin maximalism, which is obviously an April Fool's joke published on April 1st of 2022, is much of it is actually very eloquent and really well said. And you can imagine that just working through this may have scrambled some circuits. I'll just give you a small sample here. What if we live in a world of honest cryptocurrencies, of which there are very few, and grifter cryptocurrencies, of which there are very many, and a healthy dose of intolerance, in other words, Bitcoin maximalism, is in fact necessary to prevent the former from sliding into the latter. Here's the metaphor of Bitcoin maximalism as a sort of the immune system of Bitcoin, helping to stave off attacks. Anyway, this whole essay is worth reading. It's obviously done tongue in cheek, but much of it could be lifted, and it's actually a very smart defense of Bitcoin. So this is definitely a very weird time, and I admire Vitalik's openness here and his willingness to do this. He seems sincere, but it's quite funny to see him highlight many of the flaws of Ethereum that we've been talking about for so many years on this channel. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.